Hi guys, welcome to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today I'm going to teach you how to make this summer crop top. We're going to start with 4 triangles and we're going to make those all the same. And then how I'm going to show you is to join the triangles and then to continue working your pattern to the length that you desire. Okay? We're going to sew in the ends up here on the top. For this top, I used a 2-weight yarn with a 4mm hook. The tutorial that we're going to do today is going to be a 3-weight yarn and a 4.5mm hook. It's going to start off looking a little bit more like this. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you how to do this triangle. It's a really easy repeat. Okay, so the first part that we're going to be doing is these triangles. Let me show you how to measure them. This is where you're going to get your sizing from. You're going to continue working all the way down your triangle until you get to, there's 4 of them. So basically you're going to take your bust and you're going to divide it by 4. So let me get my measuring tape. If you're doing this for a toddler or a child, their bust is going to be a lot smaller. So for example, my daughter's bust is 28. So if I'm going to make her one of these shirts, I'm going to go to 7 inches because that's where her bust is. So I do want to show you, because this is easy to get wrong if you're not measuring properly. Okay, there is, if your shirt pulls like this, it's going to be a different measurement than if you try to spread your shirt out and loosen up those stitches. Now remember, clothing items, our clothes are definitely going to loosen up, so we're going to make sure that when we do our measuring that we're going to have our full triangle and not the real thin one, okay? So if I'm doing this for my daughter as 7 inches, I'm going to go probably to, yes, right about here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 rows. That's what I'm going to make for my daughter's 16 rows. This one is the size for me. So if I come all the way down and I measure to my ends where I actually joined those. It's kind of hard to measure now here, right? That one is 10 inches across. My bust is 40, so this shirt's going to be perfect for me. Now, remember, if you're going to go any larger, if you want your top looser, I really would only go like 2 rows beyond that. I wouldn't go too much farther. It's going to look really loose and funky in the front and your armpits and the back, because then your triangles might be a little bit too big. So the way we're going to make our triangles, we're going to make 4 of them. We're going to go ahead and get a slip knot right there on our hook. And we are going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to double crochet into that first chain. And this is going to be our row 1. So you're already done with your first row. Okay? Now for our next row, we're going to chain 3. It's going to count as our first double crochet. Turn your work, and into this space, we're going to work our increase. Our increase is always going to be the same. It's going to be double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. It's a really simple increase. Okay, now we need to do our last double crochet. When we do our last double crochet, we're going to do it into the top of the 3rd chain. Ideally, you're going to work into the chain spaces, and that's going to help you to keep a straighter line on your garment. When you're doing clothing, it's better to have that straight line because we're not really putting a border. and that way it's a lot neater and not like bumping. So moving on to round 3, here's where we're going to start our repeat. I mean, our repeat is technically is a fillet row, a solid row, a fillet row, a solid row. So our fillet row repeat is going to be chain 4, which is always going to be chain 4, 3 for your first double crochet, chain 1 for your space. We're going to skip a stitch, and what do you know, it brings us right into our increase. So we're going to do our increase, double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet into that space. Now we're going to chain 1 and work our last double crochet into the top of that 3rd chain. Okay, so now again, let me show you. Here's our solid row, 1, 2, 3. We're chaining up 3, and now we're working into the next stitch, which is this space. Okay, so this is our first stitch. Here's our next one, that's our 3rd. Double crochet into the next stitch. That brings us to our increase, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Remember, that's always the same. Double crochet into our next stitch, a double crochet into the space, which is the next stitch, and then we're going to try to find our 3rd chain up. So 1, 2, 3, and that's where we're going to put our last double crochet. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do 2 more rows to show you, and then we're going to put together like a little tiny tank top, like a doll tank top, or I don't know, you can put it on the stuffed bear. So we're chaining up 4, skipping this next stitch and double crocheting into the stitch after that. Chain 1, skip a stitch, brings us to the increase. So now we're doing double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, working into the next stitch, chain 1, and working into the top of the 3rd chain because we're skipping that next stitch until you get your triangles the size that you want them. This is your repeat. Solid row, fillet, solid, fillet. Now this is going to be our last row, and then I'm going to show you how to put together the triangles, okay? So we're on a solid row next, so it's chain 3, double crochet into the first space, double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next space, and double crochet into the next stitch, bringing us to the increase where it's a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So now what you should notice when you're counting your stitches and you're making sure that all of the sides are the same, your solid rows are really just going to they're going to follow the rows that you have. So I'll show you in just a second. Let me finish this one up. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Find your increase space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The amount of rows on each side should match the amount of rows in your triangle. If that's off, you're going to need to fix it, or it's not going to come out right, and it's going to look a little bit wonky. Okay, so remember I told you we're just doing a small one. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to bind off on this. I'm just going to pull up my loop, and then I'm going to cut here because this is where we're actually going to be joining our triangles. Okay, so you're going to make the size that you need, and you're going to make 4 of them, and then you're going to come back here and you're going to learn how to join them. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on joining. I've got my 6 triangles, I'm sorry, my 4 triangles. And if you take a look, we're just gonna set them out like this. And what we're gonna do is with this open loop, we're gonna slip stitch it to the top of the 3rd chain. All right, and we're gonna do that all the way across. So let me show you. We've got our loop there. We're gonna find our top of the 3rd chain, and we're gonna slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure and pull through. And now you can fasten those off and weave them in however you like. Okay, so we're gonna do that for each one. Get my loop, my next triangle, and we are going to slip stitch it to the top of the 3rd chain. Now remember, when you're doing this, make sure that all of your triangles are on the right side, or the same size. I don't know if you like the front or the back, but make sure that they're all on the same side. Okay, this is the front, this is the back. We're going to join them all together while they're on the same side. We're basically turning this into a tube. Okay, so now that we've got the end of our last triangle, what we're going to do is flip our work over. Take that first one, bring them together, and we're going to put a slip stitch into the top of that 3rd chain. And that's going to close the garment. Okay, just like that. Now you can weave in your ends later, but as you can see, this is going to be the beginning. Here is, you got your armpit holes. These are going to go over your shoulders and the back, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to be working in rounds. So instead of working on the triangles, now we're going to work in the rounds. For me, I want one extra end, less end to weave in. So I'm going to take this end, or any end, and I am going to join it with a magic knot. Okay. So let me show you. Okay, so now that we are working on our fillet row, we're going to slip stitch over 2. So essentially, the 2nd fillet that's coming up on the row underneath it, that's the one we're going to start at. Okay? So 1, 2, and we are going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, just like we did at the end of here. Chaining 4, skipping 1 stitch, working a double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skipping a stitch. Oh, here we are at our first increase. Working a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, working into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, into the next stitch. Now here we are going to be stopping at the same spot we stopped here as far as the fillets go. So how we're going to work and to keep our chevrons pattern is we're going to go straight into these last stitches on each side, and we're going to do a double crochet 2 together. Okay, chain 1, yarn over, a partial double crochet into the last stitch here, and then a partial double crochet into the first stitch here, which is what we technically slip stitched into, and pull through all and chain 1, just like that. So now this is being 1 stitch. So after your chain 1 space, you're going to skip a stitch and work into this next stitch. Now if you remember, that's where we started, right over on this side. Okay, so now we are going to chain 1, skip a stitch, work into the next double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch. That brings us to the increase, so we're at double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, then chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet. We're going to go all the way around this, and then I'm going to show you how to do the solid row. Okay, so we've got our last double crochet, and right here is where we're going to do our 2 double crochets together. So we're going to chain 1, double crochet partial in this stitch, and then a double crochet partial in the stitch coming from your other triangle. Pull through all, chain 1, and then we're going to finish our fillet row. So skipping a stitch, going into the next stitch, chain, skip a stitch, go into the next stitch, chain, skip a stitch, go into the next stitch. And that is our increase space. So I want you to go ahead and continue that until you get to the beginning. And we've got one more triangle to work. Okay, so now that we've gotten to our last double crochet and the last triangle right before we're going to join, we're going to do our double crochet 2 together in the last stitch on this one and the first stitch on this one. Okay, so don't forget your chain 1, 1, 2, pull through all, chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch to the top of the 3rd chain. We want to make sure that we are leaving space for our crochet fillet row. We want to make sure that we've got a space there. Okay, so from this one into our solid row, we don't slip stitch over at all. What we're going to do, we're going to start our solid row by chaining 3. That's going to be our first double crochet. And then we'll put a double crochet in every double crochet and every chain space until we get to our increase. Okay, so now we're at our increase. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then back along down the next side. Now, how we are going to work over the decrease here, we're going to go straight from our last full double crochet, putting a double crochet in there, and then putting a double crochet into the first full double crochet on the next side. So we're skipping the chain space, we're skipping the double crochet two together, we're skipping that chain space, and we're going to double crochet into here. So let me show you. This is our last double crochet on this triangle, and then we're going to go straight into the double crochet on this side. All right, continue working up to your increase. What do some people call them? Up the mountain and then down the valley, or up the hill and down, I don't know. So we're working our way up to the increase. It's an increase as far as like keeping our shape going, but right now we're not increasing any more stitches. The size that we're getting is the size that our triangles gave us at the bottom, and now we're just working all the way around those. And this is the filet row, and then the solid row, filet row, solid row. You're going to keep continuing this all the way till you get to the length that you want. You can put fringes on the end if you want, whatever is your preference. Remember, we're down here in this valley. We're going to go double crochet straight from here into a double crochet straight over here. So we're skipping all of these stitches. I'm going to take you to the end of this row so I can show you how to close it up. And then I'm going to send you on your way to go ahead and continue until you get the length that you want. You're going to tie up your shoulder panels, your front and your back panels. All right. Straight from here, skipping all of these and moving straight into that double crochet. Alright, we're almost through with this round. It might be beneficial for you if you want to put in stitch markers in that chain one space. Sometimes I personally will just keep, you know, crocheting more mindlessly because it's such a simple, easy pattern, and kind of just crochet right over that space. And then I gotta frog back a little bit, so that might be helpful just to help you keep where your spacing is. Okay, so here is the last double crochet, and then here is the beginning. So all we're going to do there is we're going to slip stitch into the top of the third chain, and that's going to complete your round. So here's what you're going to look like. And you're going to continue all the way down until you get the desired length. Now what you can do is either keep your seam in the middle. Personally, I just folded mine over to the other side so my seam can go down the end. Now you can take these ends and really just tie them up into each other or sew them up, and that's going to be the top of your shoulder strap. All right, go ahead and finish that. Tag me in your photos, follow me on Facebook, Jolie Knots Crochet, subscribe to my channel, hit like, share with your friends. If you do end up making this shirt, I would love to see this crop top on you, or the colors that you chose. Remember, it is customizable to your yarn and hook size, and the way that you're measuring that is each of these squares is an inch. So this one is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is for a 12-inch bust. That's probably a really cute doll. A 12-inch bust. Hey, I never made doll clothes before, but I guess here we go. All right, guys. I will watch. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.